6:36, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 89.7 WTN. Welcome on in. It is Thursday, February 27th. Dan Mandis here indeed, along with Joan Jones, KGB. Jeff Malinoff is producing, and Matthew Hurtt is joining us. I'm assuming, Matthew, you're in Virginia today?
Well, I'm in Virginia for about another 3 hours before I head to Nashville for the weekend.
All right. As folks, if you listen to the show, you know that Matthew is from Middle Tennessee and one of my favorite guests. All right, Matthew, let's talk a little bit about Elon Musk and his appearance yesterday in the cabinet meeting. I want to play a quick audio bite where Elon is talking about how Trump has put together the best cabinet ever.
President Trump has put together, I think, the best cabinet ever. Literally. So, and I do not give false praise. This is an incredible group of people. I don't think that such a talented team has actually ever been assembled. I think it's literally the best cabinet that the country has ever had, and I think the company should be incredibly appreciative of the people in this room.
So let me ask you, Matthew, how significant is it that Elon Musk was in this cabinet meeting? And he said a lot of things. There's a lot to discuss, but just give me a broad brush. What do you think?
You know, I think it is so important. As we saw on the campaign trail, Donald Trump took Elon Musk with him. He has made headlines week after week with these Doge efforts. And these are efforts that are going to be embedded in each of these federal departments. So for the members of the cabinet to have face time, to interact, to provide criticism and support and other updates about what's going on directly to Elon Musk, this is significant. And Dan, just to let your listeners know, I was in a meeting with the White House yesterday, and this topic came up. We talked about just how the cabinet is firing on all cylinders, how they're getting good people into the places they need to be, and how they're implementing some of the reforms that are coming from the Musk operation, but also other reforms that we would see enacted in business and in the private sector.
You know, one of the things that is happening clearly is that you do have the media, and there was an interview with Musk and Trump with Sean Hannity where there is this discussion of how the media is trying to drive a wedge between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I thought this was interesting from The Hill. One of the headlines, one of their bullet points from this cabinet meeting, Musk steals the spotlight. I don't know if he stole the spotlight, but if he did, number one, it seems to me like that's a headline that would raise the ire of Donald Trump, because this is a man that does like to be in the spotlight. However, Trump is giving the spotlight to Elon Musk because he's finding incredible things.
You're absolutely right. This is, I think, a media manufactured situation that they're trying to drive this wedge. I would be concerned if we started seeing Donald Trump at events like this where he didn't bring Elon Musk. But Elon Musk was on stage in the campaign trail. Donald Trump has promoted him. This was a significant part of the campaign message, and it is no surprise that Musk was in the cabinet meeting yesterday, and that he continues to be in meetings with Donald Trump and by Donald Trump's side, because again, this is such a significant part of the Trump agenda. So I'm trying to ignore those headlines, but clearly they want Washington D.C. to be a daytime soap opera to create this friction between Musk and President Trump, where I don't think there is any.
Matthew Hurtt joining us, and Matthew, you do live in Arlington. You spend a lot of time between Washington D.C. area and Middle Tennessee. How much are people panicking about the sweeping workforce cuts that Donald Trump has been talking about? One of the headlines yesterday, Donald Trump has warned the federal government, get ready because cuts are coming.
Well, the Arlington County Democrats had a meeting on Tuesday night, and I'm the Arlington County GOP chairman, and my counterparts, the Democrats, had a meeting on Tuesday night. They had about 200 members, which is only about 50 more people than actually show up to their regular monthly meetings. They've got a very robust operation. But the local media said it was a huge turnout and people are freaking out. Everyone they quoted in the article is still employed. I emailed my members on Monday just to see if there were any Republicans who were concerned about being impacted by these cuts. And I got two responses out of an email list that went out to about 12,000 people. One person was a retiree who was just generally concerned, and one was a defense contractor who didn't like the commute back to the office. I think a lot of this is played up. Are there real concerns about employment and the ability to make the mortgage? Yes, and I'm trying to assess that in Arlington, but I just don't see it yet.
One of the things I was talking to a fellow Republican, and I'll call him a Republican, and one of the things that he was trying to point out, and it was a bit of a spirited conversation, was he was trying to sort of dismiss the savings that we're seeing under Doge. And one of the things that some are saying that are trying to dismiss Elon Musk and Doge is that we're not really seeing, I'm going to accentuate the word really, we're not really seeing any savings because this money has already been, allotted by Congress, and it's been, given to the various agencies, and basically it's already been spent. And so that's something that some people are saying even on our side. And my counter to that is, well, you have the EPA and Lee Zeldin. They're trying to, in one of many examples, trying to claw that money back. It goes to NGOs, and then NGOs will, spend it on whatever. And so we've seen instances where we get in there and we see that this money has been allotted, and we are trying to, and that's actually a DC term, I guess, claw that back, bring that money back. But he's also canceled contracts. They're getting ready to, if not already, been cutting jobs. But for that to be utilized as a talking point by our side or their side or the other side seems to be, at least to me, rather myopic in nature, very short-sighted. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yes, and there are two so important points to make to counter this argument. One, cutting these contracts, changing the spending habits creates a different culture. So what we actually get is long-term, a more thoughtful way to appropriate funds through the various federal departments. But two, and this is very important for your listeners, a lot of these spending decisions actually have to be voted on by Congress. And so if the House doesn't pass these Doge proposals and the Senate doesn't approve them, then we don't see a lot of these savings at all. And so to the first point is we're changing the culture. Elon Musk and his team are changing the culture in government, which will change spending habits for the long term. But in the short term, we have to hold our members of Congress and our senators accountable because the American people voted for this. And so we've got a lot of Republicans in the Senate who don't vote for these kinds of spending cuts, and it's time for your listeners to pick up the phone and call their senators to make sure they're voting for these cuts.
Well, and yesterday I had not one but two Congress people on, Scott Desjardins and Tim Burchett. As you no doubt know, obviously, the House of Representatives, they passed a budget, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, of course, extending the Trump tax cuts. But what they also did was they raised the debt ceiling, which is exactly what Donald Trump wanted. This is controversial amongst conservatives because there's a lot of folks that will scream about the raising of the debt ceiling, but at the same time, we got an extension of the Trump tax cuts. Going to delve into that a little bit. Matthew Hurtt, our grassroots political commentator and analyst, is with us on the Newsmaker Hotline. So, Matthew, good and bad, I guess, within what the House did yesterday, raising the debt ceiling, but also extending the Trump tax cuts. Talk a little bit about, and I know that this has to go back to the Senate. Everybody's got to agree. Then it goes to Trump. But talk to me about how you feel the House did yesterday.
You know, I really appreciate people like Thomas Massie. I think the conscious of fiscal conservatives, and he put out a very, I think, thoughtful statement on it. I think that, it's going to take a lot to turn this ship around. And tax cuts, what the left will argue is that tax cuts actually cost the American taxpayer. And what that assumes is that your money doesn't belong to you, and then it first must pass through Washington before you get some of it back. And so I never, tax cuts are always a good thing. They stimulate the economy. They put more money in the pockets of the American people. They give you guys the decision on what you want to do with your funds. Raising the debt ceiling, I'm a little concerned about that. But like I said, I think it's going to take a minute to turn things around and get us back on the right track. And what I hope is where we're going to hit a wall is in the Senate, where many Republican senators are not up for re-election in 2026. Maybe they're up in 28 or 30, and they do not feel nearly as beholden to the Trump voters who sent them to Washington as they will in a few years. And so we will see quite a bit of frustration on the Senate side when we're trying to get some of these things done.
It's going to be interesting. All right, I want to play a soundbite for you. I don't know if you've heard this yet, but Tim Walz says that America is being stolen by fascists and Nazis. This was a speech amongst friends.
You know, I see the pundits on TV. What's wrong with the Democratic Party? What's wrong is our country's being stolen by fascists and Nazis, and we're trying to do all we can to try to do it. But we need to...
So there you have it. They're just not getting it.
I don't think that the fascist Nazi label is landing anymore. I was actually just called a Nazi, I think, for the first time a couple of weeks ago. But
really? You gotta step it up, man. I've been called all those things for like years. So I say all of that jokingly, of course.
But all of this, none of this is landing. The American people are still supportive of the Trump agenda, on immigration, on the economy, on foreign policy. The polls show that all demographics, most demographics, age-wise, are still fairly supportive. This is what the American people want to see, and this is just another, last-ditch effort by the left to insult their way into a policy-making majority, and that isn't going to work anymore.
Well, and here's the crazy thing is I take two things from that audio bite. Number one, obviously, he's calling Donald Trump and conservatives fascists and Nazis. That is obvious. But number two, does this mean that he's an election denier? Because he said that America is being stolen. So is he saying that 2024 there is a stolen election? I mean, if I want to start, nicking pits here, I could make that case.
Yeah, this is, and there are plenty of people who are still in denial. I think one of the wildest things that I think the Washington Free Beacon found a couple of weeks ago was that Joe Biden had given $2 billion to Stacey Abrams, a certified election denier from Georgia. And so the Democratic Party is still in disarray. In Northern Virginia, they're trying to rally around federal workers, but most people are saying, this is outrageous. What is happening with Elon Musk and Donald Trump is, on the whole, it's a net positive thing, and we want to see where this goes.
Well, and the thing about Elon Musk, and he admitted it, folks. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fix the mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. If you want to start comparing mistakes, let's look at the last 4 years of Joe Biden compared to what Elon Musk has accomplished, and also the mistakes. And one last thing that I would say too is that when you have people that, as you and I spoke about earlier, they're trying to dismiss or, poo-poo what Elon Musk is accomplishing. Let's also remember that a big part of this is awareness. People need to be aware of what the Democrats stand for. A lot of this happened under Joe Biden's watch. So whether it's 1 billion, 2 billion, 10 billion, 55 billion, whatever is saved, that's all fine, well, and good. But to me, awareness is worth its weight in gold.
Dan, these budget line items have been available to the public for years. We've been able to see them for a long time, but the awareness that Elon Musk and people like Data Republican on Twitter have raised to make the case has been truly illuminating, and your listeners and millions of others are clued in and educated about it.
Thank you, Matthew Hurtt. I hope you feel better. I know that you lost your voice. You've kind of sort of found it. Are you feeling better?
Plenty of honey lemon tea and a lot of rest, but I appreciate it.
Listen, I know this stuff called throat coat, and it does a lot of good. It's got slippery elm. You want me to send you some?
Oh my gosh!
What?
I'll have to swing by the studio.
All right, see you later. Thank you. Oh, by the way, how can people find you on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter at Matthew Hurtt, MattheWHurtt.
Thank you. See you later. It's a problem with me offering my slippery elm to people.
Couldn't go one interview without right. Selling the throat coat, huh?
I'm surprised you don't wear an overcoat and you pull out one side of the overcoat and you've got all the slippery elm varieties, and you
Yes.
offer them
in
to
a
people.
back alley somewhere.
Yeah.
I got your fix.
Listen,
Yeah.
I can't go full on slippery elm. Okay, I'm just saying that it sounded like he could use some.
Yeah.
And it has worked for me. It works for me every morning. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
You know, I feel like I'm being judged right now. I do.
Dan, we always judge you.
That we call you a pusher isn't enough for you to, like, you feel like you're being judged? Yeah.
All right, moving right along.